capitalist system in some ways, and that work does continue. It's not a panacea though, it's not good for everything. It's inherently shared generally, there are private ones, I'll come on to that. You don't always want to share your information. It's not good for storing large amounts of information. Just as you wouldn't stick an image in your database, you wouldn't want to stick some chunky bit of information in blockchain, you get blockchain load. And actually that's one of Bitcoin's weaknesses. Its blockchain is now over 100 gigabytes. It means you can't really put it on a phone or a laptop sensibly anymore. And actually the number of nodes is shrinking in the network as a result. Also, it's not for very rapid transactions. Typically, consensus amongst nodes, depending on the blockchain, takes of the order of a minute. So if you want to do very fast transactions, it's not necessarily the right thing. Like with cloud, there are flavors of blockchain emerging. I would always advocate that, as a purist, the public versions are the best ones. That's where you get the real power of the distribution of the decentralized nature of it. Private blockchains, things like Hyperledger, IBM are working on, which is open source still. And it does make sense for some things, like say a collective of banks. They want to have a shared blockchain amongst them so they can do private transactions. And sometimes there's something that's in the middle. You want to have the power of a public blockchain, but there's some information that you want to keep private. So yeah, there's a few flavors. There's a huge amount of interesting blockchain technology at the moment, which I don't have time to talk about this morning, but I have a longer talk tomorrow that I'm going to talk about. Smart contracts, that's basically taking business logic and putting it into the blockchain. Access control, a good example of this is the NHS. So a bunch of dispersed data stores, your data is probably partly your GP, partly your hospital, partly the hospital you were born. You might want to be able to specify that certain individuals or organisations have access to certain bits of that information, and also to be able to track who has changed what and who has accessed what. A blockchain, a public blockchain, is absolutely ideal for that. It can be obfuscated and encrypted, the data, such that nobody else can see who has access to what, but we as citizens could have power over it. Distributed file systems, that's basically about taking the unused storage on home PCs and offices and data centers and liberating it and monetizing it and achieving the same levels or better of resilience and availability that we see in typical cloud storage systems at a tiny fraction of the price, like a fifth or a tenth of what Amazon S3 costs. Distributed computing is perhaps the most interesting of all, and I'm going to talk about Ethereum a lot tomorrow. Ethereum is the world's first global distributed singleton computer, which is pretty mind-blowing when you think about it. It has a number of really amazing inherent properties as well. It's fully object-oriented, so you stick your code on there, it's all object-oriented code. It provides full atomicity, so the operations either run or they don't. There's no nasty halfway house failures. You get full provenance built in, so whenever there's a method call, you can actually track exactly where that method call came from all the way through the code. You get object immortality, which is a slightly odd concept, unless an object explicitly self-destructs. No team can come along and no sysadmin can log in as root and delete it. And likewise, immutability, nobody can change the data. So, where do I think open source comes into this? I personally believe open source has still somewhat yet to have its day, but that day is upon us. The interest in open source is rising exponentially, and as we've just been hearing from Ian Maxwell, particularly amongst the most conservative users, amongst government users. Likewise, blockchain is rapidly gaining momentum. I believe that open source and blockchain are kindred spirits and can potentially be allies, or are natural allies, in the fight for a more liberal and meritocratic world of IT. This is my attempt to sort of describe a bit of a sort of brief history of IT in this context. So along the top we see the evolution of open source. It's nearly as old as I am. No, it's older than I am. No, nearly as old as I am. I think it's only really since the advent of Git, so Linus Torvalds doing his thing again. I mean, yeah, Stallman, great guy too. That was a seismic shift from the bazaar model to the clones and forks model. So that's much more decentralised in terms of the progression towards a much more decentralised approach to software. At the same time, we've seen waves of centralisation and decentralisation of IT more generally. I mean, if you go back to before I was born, in the 1970s, my dad ran a computer bureau. His company owned large centralised compute resource. At the time, it had 14K of RAM, punch cards, and they rented it out on short time frames to run payroll mostly for other companies. Since then, there's been a number of waves of insourcing and outsourcing, and now cloud, although we think of it as fluffy and out there, actually it's just the latest wave of massive centralisation of IT. And basically, I today do the same things as my dad. I run a large centralised IT resource, data centre full of servers, and I rent it out in short time frames to other companies in the form of VMs. However, I think we're now at a bit of a tipping point, a bit of a perfect storm, because this latest wave of centralisation is different. It's a remote centralisation, so it's not local in people's offices and data centres. It is in the cloud. We have a massively interconnected world. I think back in 2010, more than 2/3 of people in the developed world were connected to the internet, and that's just continues to rise. So we've got massive interconnectivity. We've got Internet of Things around the corner. Open source adoption is becoming widespread. It's finally been taken seriously and used properly. And now we have blockchain as well. And I believe that with blockchain and open source and these other facets, we can actually usher in a new paradigm of fully distributed software, logic, and IT resources. And that's why I think you should all be very excited about blockchain and should be starting to learn how to write distributed apps or DApps. Thank you very much.